How's it going, everyone? Wanted to introduce you guys to our new project that we have in the works here. Behind me is a 1974 ATC 90. So it is the last year of the big tire three-wheelers from Honda. It started out as a US 90 in 1968 or 1969, not sure which one it is. And honestly, between those years and 74, couple little tiny changes, but nothing terribly different between those model years. In 1975, they went away from the really small tire, the small hubbed, large balloon tire, to more of a larger wheel and not quite so much of a balloon tire. Still a balloon tire, but not quite like these guys are right here. So picked this thing up a couple of months ago, and we've been riding it around and having fun with it. So it's nice enough to be to be a showpiece, but not so nice that you're going to be afraid to ride it. And we've had a lot of fun with it. So runs pretty good. Tires hold air. Couple little things that we're going to address with it, and one of them is what we're going to address today. So I happened to notice, I don't know, 5-6 weeks ago, I was getting a little bit of fuel dripping out of it, and pulled the back off here, pulled the fenders off, and pulled the fuel tank off, and you can see that previous owner had a leak in the tank, and they didn't do a very good job of repairing it. So they smeared some, I don't know, it looks like JB weld to me on the bottom of it, but the fuel ate through that and started to drip in that spot. So I decided I was going to coat the tank, and as I started exploring a little bit more, I noticed that there's some rust inside the tank and such. It's going to be 50 years old, so it's no surprise that there's going to be rust inside that tank. So what I have for you today is the first of a couple of different projects that we're going to put this thing through. And so this is KBS Coatings Cycle Tank Sealer Kit, and the gist of this is it's a three-part process. The first part being this spot, the KBS Clean. What we'll do, and it's going to be our first step in this process, is we'll remove everything, we'll pull the tank off, we'll plug all the holes up inside the tank, we'll mix a 1-to-1 ratio of the KBS Clean with warm water, and we're going to throw that in there with some other little surprise that I have to help move everything around and get any sort of grease and grime outside of the tank. We'll let that sit overnight, clean it out. The next step will be this rust blast. So the rust blast does exactly what it sounds like. It'll sort of take some of the rust away and neutralize the rust that is there, and then it actually puts a coating on it that is going to allow this tank sealer to take a bite and seal it. So I don't want to say it's epoxy based, but it's kind of that same idea. So this will kill two birds with one stone. Number one, it's going to take care of all that rust, so you're not putting rusty fuel into the carburetor. And the other thing it's going to do is it's going to seal that pinhole that we obviously have a pinhole on this side. So it'll seal that. So I'm going to go ahead and start pulling this thing apart, and we will get started with this. So this is one of the simpler vehicles on the planet to work on, and I think we can actually take the tank off without any tools. The first step is going to be to remove this rear fender and seat section. There's a little leak here, just pop that. And remove that out of the way. There is a little rubber piece right here that has the back of the tank, kind of secures the back of the tank on there. And the other thing that we have to do is disconnect the fuel lines. You can see I've actually disconnected those already. And at that point, just pull the fuel tank off. So check this thing out. You can see on the bottom of it, previous owner made some repairs on it, and pretty terrible job. So I don't know if I'll grind that off at some point or just leave it there. I'm not 100% sure, but right now I'm more interested in taking care of what's inside of there. All right, so that's gonna be our first step. I think we'll push the three-wheeler back a little bit so we have a little bit more space, and we'll get rolling here. So one of the recommendations is that you seal the bottom of the tank. So this one has 2 nozzles on it, and the best idea that I could come up with is I had some rubber gloves. I just cut 2 of the fingers off, Motley Crue style, and I just put it on the bottom here, put some duct tape. Hopefully that will hold it together. They recommend that you put a solution of this KBS Clean and 1-to-1 warm water. So I just grabbed some warm water with it too. And putting it in there, shaking it up every couple hours or so. According to the instructions right here, it also recommends that you put some keys or some loose bolts or whatever. And rather than do that, I thought we have some BBs for a Crossman BB gun. Why not dump some BBs in there? I can get a whole bunch more in there. And if the goal is to move everything around and sort of agitate everything, these should do pretty good at agitating. So we're gonna get rolling with this right now. So they want the whole thing of this in here. And let's see how we're doing here on the bottom. Hey, so far so good. So nothing leaking out yet, no explosions. We're gonna go ahead and fill this up with water. I guess you don't have to have it perfect, but I'm trying to be as perfect as I can. So if they want 1-to-1, we're gonna give them 1-to-1. Still pretty warm, actually. Put a new hot water heater in a few weeks ago, and it heats water. I guess that's what they're supposed to do, right? So just about full here. I would like to know what this is. It's a degreaser of some sort, but I'm a huge fan of Simple Green. I'm wondering if Simple Green would work just as well. Looks like about a liter's worth here. So I'll go ahead and dump that in here. All right, get this stuff out of the way, and put some BBs in there. I don't know how many to put in, so that ought to be enough. And put the lid on there, and they say what you're supposed to do, kind of jiggle this around a little bit. Now, because this is not necessarily 100% waterproof, I think probably the smart thing to do, and I typically don't do the smart thing, but I think what I'm going to do is leave it in here. So if anything leaks, it doesn't end up all over the garage floor. And I'm going to let that go. I'll come down every hour or so, every 2 hours, and shake that up a little bit. And I'll give it probably 4 or 5 hours tonight, dump it out, and then let everything air dry overnight. And then when we come back tomorrow's Thanksgiving, in the midst of doing a little bit of cooking, I'll come down here and I'll put the step 2 in it, and we'll run some BBs through it again and hopefully get some of that rust knocked down and taken care of. But we'll check back here in a few hours, or maybe even tomorrow. So we'll check back with you. So you always learn some new things along the way. As I came down here to shake this thing up a little bit and move the cleaner around inside the tank, I noticed that the rubber glove and duct tape idea is probably one of the worst ideas I've ever had. It was terrible. Didn't work great at all. I tried flex tape. I figured, hey, they cut a hole in a boat and put flex tape on it and it doesn't sink. Flex tape didn't work well either. So I went back to the rubber glove idea, cut 2 more fingers off, and decided, let me try some zip ties on the bottom of it, and that's the ticket. The zip ties work really, really well. Not 100% perfect, but they work much better than the duct tape did. And as I had it sitting here, I've been spinning the thing around, so you can see there's stuff coming from all over the place. But for the most part, it's done a really nice job of sealing that up, and you can hear the BBs inside there. And that's evidently what you're supposed to do every so often. And you can see inside of here, I mean, it's brown and gross, and I knew I'd rust inside of there. I'm sure there's all sorts of stuff that I don't want to know about inside of there. And we'll just continue to do this. And the next time I come back to you, I'll show you what it looks like when we pour all this stuff out of there. My hands are pretty filthy, full of rust, so I know the inside of this thing's pretty gross. All right, so we're back in this morning. I have had this soaking all overnight. So we have the KBS Rust Blast in here. I did come down a number of different times and give it a good shake. So it's been in here, I don't know, like 15, 16 hours or so. So I think it's time to go ahead and dump this out and see what we've got. I'm not quite sure the best method to do this since I've never done this before. So I think I'm just going to pour the water into here. Hopefully you guys can see this. Let's do this. There we go. Oh yeah, that's pretty horrible. This should be fun trying to get all these BBs out of here. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to pour some fresh water back into here. I want you to get all this gunk rinsed out of here, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. All right, just sort of slosh it around there a little bit more. It's definitely coming out a lot clearer. And the idea being here, what we'll do is we'll keep rinsing this until it flows clear out of here, and then we're going to have to dry it. So I'll let the whole tank dry pretty much for the rest of today. And perhaps a little later, if it's dry a little later, I'll come down and I'll do step 2. If it's not, we'll wait until tomorrow. So it's a slow, tedious process. In the instructions here, it does say, I noticed, it says to basically take your time. Don't be in a hurry to do this. There's no benefit to doing this fast. So, I'm not in a hurry to get this done. We'll do it the right way, so we only have to do it one time. So we'll check back with the next step here in just a bit. So I completely forgot that about a year or two ago, I bought myself a heat gun. Wasn't exactly sure when I was going to use it, And so here's a perfect time for me to use this. So what we're gonna do, I've been playing around with it a little bit, is just turn this thing on. You don't want to get it too hot, and I've just been running the air into this, and let it go in there for a minute or two basically, and then flip the tank upside down and slosh it around a little bit, and just little tiny bits of water have been coming out of it. You can see steam coming off of it, so I definitely have it hot enough to the point where it's drying up inside here. So this is definitely going to expedite this process for me. Just shaking it. Just a little bit of steam you can see coming out of there. So definitely a little wet inside of there still. So maybe I'll try this. It's pretty good. Definitely looks dry inside of there. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to slide this stuff out of the way for now. And I think we're going to go ahead. And dump the next step into here, which is the rust blast. So I have to dump this in and put an agitator in there as well too, so I'll put the BBs back into it. And this we have to move more often than not. So about every 5 minutes I'll roll it around, and we'll just see what happens inside of there. So I have my BBs over here. Go ahead and dump those back in. So I have BBs all over the place. Probably bolts would be a little easier to manage, but I'll tell you what, these are pretty good. These work pretty well. And they're a little bit of a pain to get out of there, but I figure I'm gonna have a lot more of these in there moving around and getting all the rust particles and such out of there. So I guess we'll see how well it works. You can see there's a lot of rust, a lot of messiness going on here. So, all right, got a couple there I'll put in later. I'm gonna go ahead and dump this in and try and do my best to not spill this anywhere. And they want this non-diluted, so all you do is put this stuff in here. And you let it do its thing, let it go to work. So I will seal this back up, maybe. There we go. Seal this back up, and I'll move this around every couple of minutes or so. And we'll see what we end up with. I'll show you guys what it looks like here in a couple of hours. All right, everybody, so we're progressing through this whole series of steps pretty well, actually. It's going really well. I have to show you this. After drying out the first step where we put that soapy mixture inside of there and clean all the sludge out. I mean, check that out. It's pretty gross. Did pour some of that out already, so that's kind of what's left over. So I wanted to mention that. Here's another thing too. One of the things that the directions mention is, as you go through this process, if you have a pinhole, which we do, the pinhole may potentially get worse as you put the rust blaster. Well, check it out. Definitely have a leak right here. I'm sure you guys can see that. So pretty sketchy. We definitely have bigger than a pinhole at this point, and supposedly this other stuff is supposed to clean all that out. So I guess we will see. But what we're going to do is we're going to dump this mixture out. This is an acid of some sort, so I want to try not to touch it too much. And actually, yes. So that you're able to see what we have going on here. Let's go ahead and dump this out. I will tell you, just looking inside of there, it has gotten rid of a lot of that rust. So not 100% of it, but a lot. So we're on to the final step, which is applying the KBS tank sealer. And before you go ahead and put this into here, number one, you want to make sure that this tank is completely dry. So we've waited about 24 hours for this process to take effect. So that's number one and most important. And then number two, you want to make sure that you have this thing, you have this sealer mixed up really well. So I'm not sure how well you guys can see that in there, but they don't want you to whip it at all to introduce air. Just kind of putting this popsicle stick, for lack of a better word, down to the bottom and then kind of like pulling it up, just so you get that good silver mixture. All right. So the other thing I want to do is I want to get this is a pretty small opening. So I'm going to actually grab a funnel to put it in there and then funnel this material inside of it. I didn't want to mess up one of my good funnels, so I just took that 2-liter bottle that we were actually using to put the water in here. I cut the top off of it. I can just toss this when I'm done. So I'm just going to dump this in here. And I'm going to go with about half first, just to see what we get here. It's a pretty small tank. You can always add more. And I just want to see how it is coating around here. So the other thing I don't want to do is get any of this stuff on the tank itself. And the idea here is you just move it around. I can actually see it inside of here. Just trying to coat all these surfaces. And they also recommend that you don't want to get it too thick either. I guess that's not necessarily a good thing because then it doesn't dry correctly and it can actually peel off and give you some issues as well. I can definitely tell I'm going to have to put the whole thing in here. I'm sure of it. And that's kind of what this process is. It's literally just adding it and rolling it around. You don't want it to pull in any particular spot. Just add the whole thing here. And then roll it around for about 30 minutes or so. And after 30 minutes, they want you to dump out any of the excess that you might have. So I know for sure that my leak is on this back left side. I want to make sure we definitely get a lot back in there. Oh, I can actually see it coming out. There we go. So that's good, I think. Ooh. Yeah, that's got a good hole in there. It does come with a little brush too. Put that brush somewhere here. Oh, there we go. And I'm just going to make sure I paint that area up here with some of that sealant. I guess the idea being you just want to roll this thing over and over. I don't want to have any of this spill out of there. So I'm going to drop this on top of here just to hopefully eliminate any of this stuff from coming out of here and messing the paint up. And this is the process, you know, not probably the greatest video to watch. So I'm going to turn the video off and basically I'll be rolling this thing around in here for the next 30 minutes or so. And my next time back with you will be when we actually check it out, make sure that it's dry, and I think I'm going to fill it with water for the first time to make sure that I don't have any leaks. There you go. That's going to be the process, so we'll check back soon. So over the last few days, we have been running through a multi-step process of sealing our gas tank on our 1974 Honda ATC 90. What we came to find out is that, you know, we knew that there was some rust on the inside of it, but we actually ended up having a fuel leak, and the fuel leak was on the bottom side right here. So somebody had tried to repair this in the past and didn't do a very good job of it. And I decided that if I was going to repair it, I was going to fix it right. It's a multi-day process. So each step they say to wait about a day. And the final step, actually, they recommend that you wait 96 hours for the coating to completely cure. We waited an extra day. So 96 hours is 4 days. I actually waited 5 days. And it's completely dry. So I want to show you what the inside of the tank looks like. Bring that over here, Mark. I don't know if you can get a shot inside of there, but you can see the silver material that's inside of there. Not sure how well you can see it. Okay, not so close. All right, and ultimately that seals this tank up. These things are basically getting really difficult to find, and it was in decent shape besides that, so we figured we'd seal it and hopefully get another almost 50 years of use out of this thing. So no more rust, no more leaks, and I'm excited to get it back installed on here and ready to go. Our next step in this process is actually going to be rebuilding the carburetor on this. So I'm absolutely frightened at what the inside of this carburetor may look like just simply due to the amount of rust that came out of this in the cleaning and sealing process. So that'll be our next installment on our ATC 90 project.